Good afternoon and welcome back to Storytime as we finish up our book Too Much Salt and Pepper by Sam Campbell, the Forest Life series. We are in chapter 15. Hope you're having a good day as we continue. Farewell with a future to it. One October morning, the carnival spirit broke loose in the forest. For days, trees had been primping and posing, trying on their colorful costumes, getting ready for some gala event. And then came the long-awaited hour. That morning the sun was just right, bright and strong. The wind was just right, blowing troops of dancing clouds across a rich blue sky. And as light spread across the world, it revealed the forest multitude in dazzling array. Maples were dressed in rich crimson, oaks in deep maroon. Birches wore a golden yellow, sumacs were in startling scarlet, and aspens in vivid orange. A mood of revelry reigned over the woodland. Everything seemed happy and gay. Surely another event of joy and importance was happening. An old crow winged his way through the sky, his shrill cry of caw-caw echoing on the shores. But to the forest folk it said, "Awake, awake, the carnival has begun. They are going today, and we must speed them on their way." "Yes, we are going away today," said Jenny, just a bit sadly, "and the forest celebrates our going just as happily as it did our coming. I am not sure I like that." But the carnival went on, gaining momentarily in hilarity. Red squirrels chattered loudly, ducks darted through the sky, jaybirds called, and trees dancing in the breeze pelted us with the confetti of their falling leaves. Jenny and I stood at the shore of our island, our canoe afloat in the shallow water, loaded with baggage. It was time for us to leave our sanctuary and take up our lecture work in distant cities once more. Emotionally, we were in a quandary. We wanted to go, but we wanted to stay. We wanted to reach the thousands of people who would find release from a war-weary world in the nature stories we could bring them. Yet we wanted to watch with our forest friends the coming of winter to our loved North Country. But there was no choice in the matter. The hour had arrived and we were going. We entered our canoe and paddled out into the waters which had been strewn with multicolored leaves. Little waves lapped playfully at the side of our canoe as if goading us along. Jenny looked at them somewhat reproachfully. "This doesn't mean our forest is glad we are leaving," I said reassuringly. "Nature is just plain glad, no matter what happens. We have to go, and so the forest puts on a party. We should be grateful." "I guess you're right," said Jenny, not entirely consoled. We paddled away slowly, with many a backward look toward our sanctuary. 6 weeks had passed since Carol had departed. Her going was an exciting, though not an entirely joyous event. The woods had crept deeply into her heart, and she did not want to leave. Her baggage was packed at the very last minute, and characteristically she stumbled and nearly fell in the water even as we were entering the boat. Then it was that something happened which sent her away with a laugh in her heart. We had barely enough time to catch her train when, fweet, fweet, had come the whistle announcing Salt's unwelcome presence at my neighbor's pier. Hurriedly I rode over to get the pesky Porky while Carol awaited in delight. She petted him a bit and played with him, and with a tear in her voice said goodbye. Unsentimental Salt thereupon bit one of the suitcase straps in two and climbed up a tree. Several letters from Carol in the following days told that she was getting into the swing of things at school. She was remembering what the forest had taught her. "I find I can be quiet in all the confusion," she wrote, "and when I get lost in this excitement I find myself again just the way I did that day near Vanishing Lake. That is fine, Carol. What you have studied in the woods was not just for use there. Let these things remain in your mind so that they will serve you wherever you are. You have learned what it means to be quiet. Never will you need it more than in the hurry and confusion of school and social life. You have seen how nature's children use their play to build their health and prepare them for happy, successful lives. If you now choose well your pleasures, you will store up treasure for your own future. You have seen what it means to hold a right attitude and what blessings a right sense of appreciation can bring. You know how industry and intelligence serve the children of the forest, and you may prove, if you will, how they serve you too. And you know the power of good cheer. In the lessons of nature, you have seen that there is an individual responsibility every living thing must assume, and there is no doubt but that you will accept that which is yours. And you saw strength that is back of all living things. Now, child, through your faith, keep this strength active in your own life. Sometimes the human world seems in conspiracy against these qualities of nature. Our styles and habits, our aimless way of living, strive to draw us away from such worthwhile things. You will be tried, Carol. So-called wise ones will whisper their doubts and in their ignorance attempt to influence you. To all who dare believe in the best comes this test and challenge. But we may hold to our ideals if we will, and thus carve for ourselves lives of accomplishment, usefulness, and happiness. Keep those things you have learned in the sanctuary, for they are real and true. Jenny and I paddled close into the mainland as we headed out on our winter journey. Back in those groves somewhere lived old Inky the philosopher, Inky the solitary and saucy porcupine. My last visit with him had been just the night before. "So you're heading out, are you, Sammy, old kid?" he had said. "Well, I kinda hate to see you go. You don't know much, but you're willing to learn. You might give those folks down there a message from me. Tell them to try being natural. Yes, just try being natural. That's all they need. They get so blamed messed up in their strutting and pretended, and there just isn't any good in it. Did you ever think what it means to be natural?" "Well, I have thought some," I said hesitantly. "Not very much, I'll bet," said Inky, with disapproving little grunts. "Listen, what's the biggest compliment you can give anyone? Let me tell you, it is to say that he is perfectly natural. You know right well, when you say that, you mean whoever you are talking about is all right. If he's natural, he's dependable. He says what he means and means what he says. He doesn't bluff and he doesn't lie, for that isn't natural. A perfectly natural person doesn't pat you on the back in front of your face and slap your face behind your back. No, sirree, it isn't only what is natural in the forest that is good and beautiful. It's what is natural everywhere. And I hate to tell you so, but there isn't anything more beautiful than what is natural in you human beings. Now, take Carol, for instance." "You kind of fell for her, didn't you, Inky?" I asked, teasing. "Ah, balsam juice," said Inky, blushing a bit. "She's okay, I guess. That is, if she stays natural. But if she starts a-putting on airs and acting like someone she isn't, she'll lose more than half her charm. And by the way, not that it makes any difference, but, I mean, she'll be coming back again, won't she?" "Yes, Inky, Carol will be coming back again. And when she does, she will still be as natural and lovable as she was on this first visit." We paddled on, saying little as the forest festival continued. Tiny shoreline bushes looked out at us and smiled colorfully. Wild asters waved a cheery greeting. Now we were passing our neighbor's pier. The cabin was boarded up against the coming winter, and our friends had long since left for the sunny south. We smiled as we looked at the pier where Salt had come so often for his ferry service. But we felt sure he would not come again. For 2 weeks he had been gone now, not even returning to tell us goodbye or to take part in our farewell party. Salt and Pepper were together once more. We had come upon them in the forest, heard their little play talk as when they were babies on the island, and found them tussling and wrestling about. Just when this reunion had taken place we could not know. Perhaps in all of Salt's trips to the mainland he had been visiting his companion. Again, it might be that they had just found each other. At any rate, we had seen them together, played with them, and then watched them race away into the woods in most obvious happiness. This reunion was what we had hoped for, and now that they were together, we did not regret leaving them in the forest. Autumn evenings had brought us many adventures. We felt sure we had seen Babette at the Salt Lick on several occasions. At least it was a beautiful doe we saw, and no one could prove it wasn't she. Then once in the twilight, when we were hiking down a little trail, we had seen the antlered king on top of a knoll. Silhouetted against the evening sky, his antlers were fully grown. No doubt he had been rubbing them against a cedar tree or a balsam, and they were free of the velvet or soft skin which covered them when they were growing. He stood motionless for a moment, then with a precise step, head held high, ears turning this way and that, seeking sounds, he moved away into the forest. And we breathed a prayer into the solitude that he might escape all dangers and live on for us to see again. The beavers of Beaver Bay were working incessantly. Their house was huge now, and it looked strong enough to withstand an earthquake. Often, as we paddled along those shores at night, we heard them at work cutting trees, and always before we had left their realm, one or more of them would give the beaver warning of a tail slap and a dive. Many birds had already left the north country. Purple mountains had Martins had long since departed to winter in the far south, perhaps even in Venezuela or Brazil. White-throated sparrows had gone, murmuring remnants of their summer songs, to live in the sunshine of Florida and southern Texas. Our little Phoebe had left her nest in the boathouse and flown south, perhaps to Cuba or Mexico. The ovenbird, whose call dominates the forest with a shrill "teacher, teacher, teacher, teacher," was well on her way to some southern haunt, perhaps an island in the Caribbean Sea. The blue herons were gone now to stand still on their stilt-like legs in the swamps of Louisiana or the Everglades of Florida. And yet the woods were not stripped of bird life. As we paddled our canoe through the channel into the next lake, we were where a car would be waiting for us. A flock of chickadees darted through the foliage of nearby trees. They were gossiping merrily, and no winter blast could frighten them into leaving their beloved northern forests. A wave of goldfinches darted across from one shore to the other, their brilliant plumage rivaling the autumn leaves. Back in the woods we could hear a woodpecker drumming rhythmically on an old dead tree. "We are leaving the sanctuary in very good shape this year," Jenny was saying as we neared our landing place. "All our forest friends seem so well prepared for the winter. Inky is contented, Salt and Pepper are together, the raccoons are happy. It makes going away easier when we know this." "Yes," I agreed. "I have more comfort now than I had all summer. When we return in the spring, these animals will have taken to the woods and will be independent of us. We will see them, but there won't be any more crunching on our cabin and no more whistles in the middle of the night. The pestering days of those fellows are over, and I am glad for a little rest." I was thinking of the many problems our porky pals had given us during the summer. Jenny smiled wisely. "And another thing," I said with emphasis, "I believe next spring I am not going to accept any more animals to raise, no matter what they are. It would be fine to have time to just read and write and rest for a season without bears or porkies to worry about. Yes, I have decided. In the springtime, I'll watch for our old friends in the woods, but absolutely no new pet animals." Just at that moment, there was an outburst of the wildest sort of laughter close over our heads. "Wah, ha, 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 ha!" An old loon flying south had paused to spill his merriment over us. He lighted on the lake where he flapped wildly about, continuing his laughter as if he simply couldn't control himself. Then there was another laugh in a higher pitch. "Hee hee hee," giggled a kingfisher as he dived playfully into the water and rose to a branch where he could look down at us. Then a squirrel chattered as if to say, "Ah, look who's talking, ha ha ha," and the crows and ravens overhead echoed, "Ha ha." By this time Jenny was laughing too. "You see what they think of your resolve," she said as we were climbing out on the landing. And anyway, you know better yourself. In the spring, you will take any kind of a creature that needs help, from a baby mosquito to an elephant, and the more trouble it is, the better you will like it." "Well," said I, hesitating to admit what I knew as true, "at least I think next spring can't bring any greater trouble than we have already had." But it did, in a very unexpected and original way. That's the end of our book, Too Much Salt and Pepper. Join us tomorrow for our next book and find out what happens next spring. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and still mo. Tomorrow, 4 o'clock, same time, same place. Have a blessed afternoon. God bless.